Our final session today is going to be an open discussion with the FSIS District Manager for the Dallas District, Dr. Jennifer Beasley-McKean. In her role at the Dallas District, Dr. McKean oversees plants in Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, and New Mexico. She has worked in the Dallas District office for the past 10 years. After graduating from LSU's School of Veterinary Medicine in 1993, she worked for 5 years in mixed animal private practice before joining FSIS. Her FSIS career began in poultry slaughter plants, and after 5 years, she was promoted to staff officer with the former Technical Service Center, now the Policy Development Division. She was promoted to the Dallas District as a Deputy District Manager in 2005 and became District Manager in 2007. Her in-plant experience was primarily poultry slaughter and raw processing, but she also spent time working with Labor and Employee Relations Division staff on personnel issues and has extensive background in export issues, labeling, and various types of processing. Dr. McKean is going to make a few opening remarks, and then we're going to open it up, and I encourage all of you to engage. Don't forget that you can add questions that we can raise on your behalf, either anonymously or with your name associated with them. Dr. McKean, you can begin sharing your screen right now.
I'm hoping that you guys can hear me, and I'm hoping that you can see my screen. I think I'm doing it correctly. Could anybody let me know if they can at least hear me?
Yes, you're coming through good, and we can see your screen.
Oh, excellent. Because I'm not that tech savvy, but I was hoping I'd be able to do this. So I'll turn my camera on too, so you can see me. Well, you can see the top of my head. Here we go. Okay, so hi everybody. I'm in my office here today, and just wanted to throw up these screens or these slides that I usually show you guys. This is just our current chain of command for anybody that we've made a few changes. Just to highlight Mr. Johnny McAdams, most of y'all knew him, our old district case specialist. He did retire back in, I guess it was August of last year. Time really flies. So we do have Dr. Nancy Leyland, our district case specialist. Of course, Ms. Doretta Dunn still handles all the grants. I think most everybody's familiar with Ms. Dunn. Have 3 deputy district managers. They haven't changed. Dr. Kinsey Naylor-Biles, she supervises all our EIAOs, and we do have a couple of new EIAOs. Dr. Samuel Dragoy, and he supervises the frontline supervisors and the 2 district veterinary medical specialists. Dr. Gary Davis, he supervises the other frontline supervisors. And then Mr. Bill Fountas, my resource manager. The plants really don't have much contact with Mr. Fountas. He mostly handles stuff that applies to FSIS employees. But just so everybody knows, whatever circuit your plant's in, who your deputy district manager is. So I wanted to put that information up there. Again, here's just our contact information, email addresses. These are direct phone numbers. And even though we are liberally teleworking, there is somebody in the district office every day, at least either a deputy district manager or myself. And then Ms. Dunn is strictly telework, but you can still catch her at her same number. And then Dr. Leyland is in and out of the office, but all of us have our office phones forwarded to our cell phones when we're teleworking, so you shouldn't have any trouble contacting us. Just wanted to put a couple of things in here. Joe, thank you for the suggestion. Just wanted to talk about responding to the district office. So if you get an administrative enforcement letter, such as an NOIE, a notice of intended enforcement, or perhaps you received a notice of suspension, what are we looking for? We're really looking for corrective and preventive measures. What are you going to do to correct the issues and prevent the issues from happening again? In your own words, that's what we're asking. So a simpler way of saying that, what are you doing to fix the problem now? And what will you be doing to prevent the problem from coming back in the future? We're looking for, in your written response, we're looking for written programs. So we need more than just a letter saying, I promise never to do it again. Need a written program. So If you've made changes to any of your programs, your SSOP, your HACCP plan, or perhaps a prerequisite program, and those changes are part of your corrective actions or your preventive measures, send us a copy of the relevant page or pages showing the change that you made. Okay, don't just send us a letter telling us you reassessed. We'd like to see the pages that show what changes were made. If you're going to be completing new forms, we would like to see a copy of the new forms, just a blank copy, to see what the form looks like and to make sure that we understand the form. If training is part of your response, like we're going to retrain our employees on whatever particular thing you're planning to retrain them on, we'd like to see a copy of the training material that you intend to use or what you did use. We'd also like to see the sign-in sheets to show when the training was conducted and who attended. Okay. And then if product disposition needs to be addressed, if we have like product retained for some reason, we want to know what did you do with the product or what do you intend to do with the product. So all of those things we'd like to see addressed when you're responding to an administrative enforcement letter. And now I need to figure out how to advance my next slide. Okay, great. The response needs to be something that our inspectors can verify by performing an inspection task. So whatever it is that you say that you're going to do to correct the problem or to prevent the problem, we are going to ask your inspector to follow up. We're going to tell your inspector to perform certain tasks, and your inspector in performing those tasks is going to verify that you are doing what you said you were going to do. If we send you an enforcement letter, it may only have 1 or 2 topics. It may be a lengthy list of topics, especially in an NOIE. Often there's more than 1 topic. So we need you to address everything that's in the letter. If you don't address everything that's in the letter, we're just going to ask you for whatever it is that you omitted. We don't care about a format. You can format your letter any way that you want to. You can address the issues any way that works best for you. Just make sure you address everything that was in our letter. We've had some plants ask for a copy of our letter in Word format, and then what they'd want to do is maybe insert their response under each particular item in the letter. That's fine. You can do it that way if you want. Again, we don't really care about the format as long as you address everything. If you're making label changes as part of your response, we'd like to see a copy of the new label. If your response is, we're not going to make this product anymore, then we would like to see you submit an updated application, which is FSIS form 5200-2. So say for an example, you have a heat-treated shelf-stable HACCP category, and your response is, we're not going to make products in that category anymore. We'll accept that response, that's fine, but we'd like to see an updated application removing that HACCP category from your granted inspection. If you have any questions about what goes in the letter, please call one of us. You can talk to the EIAO that may have been involved, maybe the EIO that did the food safety assessment at your plant. You can call me, I'm happy to talk to you. Call any of the deputy district managers, either Dr. Dragoy, Dr. Davis, or Dr. Naylor-Biles. Any of them should be able to answer your questions and tell you what to include. Also, our district case specialist, Dr. Nancy Leyland, she works very closely with us on enforcement letters. She would be happy to take calls from anybody and answer questions about responses. The other thing we want to point out was, if you think you need an extension in order to make a really good response to an enforcement letter, just send me an email and ask me for an extension and propose a reasonable response date. So normally, if we issue you an NOIE, we're going to tell you to respond 3 days from the date that you received the NOIE. Very few people respond in 3 days. And, you know, we understand that a lot of times perhaps you need to make a really thorough review of your programs. You may need to seek outside help. You may need to gather some additional research or something. So just let me know when you could possibly provide a response. We're not just going to give you 2 months, but anything that's reasonable, additional 1 week, maybe an additional 2 weeks, just explain why you need an extension and just propose a date that's reasonable. And in general, we'll almost always grant your response. I think the only extensions we haven't granted would be if somebody asks for like a month or two. We need a response sooner than that, but we're happy to grant you an extension if you're not really sure, and you need to put some more thought into your response. If you're going to respond with facilities modifications, like we're going to install a new roof, we're going to install new floors, we're going to install new cooling units, whatever it is that you're planning to install, we know you can't do it overnight. We know that you're going to, need to get with the contractor. And, you may need to make your modifications when the plant's not operating. So if part of your response is we're going to, make these facility modifications, propose a reasonable date. Okay. Don't just say we're going to put in a new cooling system, because our first question is going to be, when are you going to have that installed? So just give us a reasonable date that's possibly due, or, that you think you'll be able to accomplish. Talk to whoever you need to talk to and propose a reasonable date. If something happens, for example, a pandemic that nobody was really expecting, or anything else, just let us know. Hey, we've had a delay. We're not going to be able to make that date. Can we get a new date to make that modification? Absolutely, we would like to work with you. So, give us a reasonable date. If you can't make that date, at least let us know and ask for another date. Okay. And I have down here in the sub bullets, you can always submit date changes later if you need to. Once we finalize the verification plan, and this is something that we develop for our inspectors to follow, and you will get a copy of this along with your deferral letter if you're under an NOIE or if you receive a notice of suspension. You'll get a copy of the verification plan. Look it over and make sure that that is exactly what you agreed to. Make sure that we've correctly captured your responses and your corrective and preventive measures, and that those are the dates, if there's dates in there, that you actually proposed. If you see an issue with the verification plan and you want changes made, please contact us. Contact again, either the EIO, one of the deputy district managers, me, or Dr. Nancy Leyland, our case specialist. Let us know what it's supposed to say, and we can certainly make any changes to the verification plan. But don't implement any changes to your verification plan until the modifications are approved. So if originally you said we're going to install new cooling units, but then maybe a few weeks later you decide you really don't need new cooling units, you really need something else, let us know whatever that something else is that you need, and that you're not going to install the new cooling units. Let us know what you're going to do instead. And then once we update the verification plan and send it to you, that's when you can make whatever modifications in your operation that you need to make. Okay. Appeals, any inspection decision subject to appeal, any, not just NRs. You can basically appeal any inspection decision. I do prefer written appeals simply because they're easy to send back and forth. They're easy to respond to. I've got something in writing to respond to, and you'll get a written response if you appeal in writing. We prefer written responses. You can certainly appeal something verbally, but you may only get a verbal response. So if you want a written response, definitely try to appeal in writing. The appeal process would go from the employee's immediate supervisor. So if you're inspector, you would appeal to the inspector's immediate supervisor, which is generally going to be the frontline supervisor. unless you're a slaughter plant, in which case it might be the inspector in charge. So your appeal would start out with the employee's immediate supervisor. Then you would appeal to the district. After the frontline supervisor, you would appeal to the district manager. After the district manager, you would appeal to the executive associate for regulatory operations. Then the Office of Field Operations Assistant Administrator, which is Bill Bronstein. Then the administrator, Paul Kicker, who I know addressed you guys earlier. You can make appeals at any step in the process. Our preference is that you would follow the chain of command, but if for some reason you want to start out appealing to the district manager, you can do that. If you want to start out with the executive associate, you can do that. Probably you don't want to start out with the assistant administrator or the administrator, but you can. So anybody in this, you can present your appeal basically at any level, but generally we see them go from the front line to the district manager to the ERO, then the assistant administrator, then the administrator. Unless the appeal rights in your letter direct you to another office, submit your appeals to the district manager. So if you get a letter and it has appeal rights in it, usually your letter will say who you would submit your appeal to. For notices of suspension, those appeals, there's always appeal information in those notices. So look at your letters. If you're not sure who to submit your appeal to, you're welcome to call the office. You're welcome to email any of us. And we'll help make sure your appeal gets to the correct office. In your appeal, tell us what you're appealing. I mean, what are you looking for? Do you want us to discard a sample for whatever reason? Are you appealing an NR? Do you want the NR modified, or do you want the NR just totally rescinded? Are you just appealing the link? You know, the link between NRs? Are you just appealing the regulations that were cited, or are you appealing the entire NR? But kind of the more information you put in your letter, the better I will understand what it is that you want. And of course, if I'm not really sure, I'll give you a call or I'll reach out to you somehow. But just let me know what exactly you're appealing, what kind of outcome you're looking for. State your basis for appeal. In your basis for appeal, you might want to cite either a regulation, a policy, an FSIS notice, FSIS guidance material, training material, compliance guide, any kind of policy document that you're using to support your appeal. If you're using something, you don't need to provide the document that you're using to support your appeal. Just describe the regulation or describe the policy, describe the notice or directive. I'll look it up and find it. You don't need to send that with your appeal, but let me know what you're basing your appeal on, okay? If you want to include any documents that support your position, such as establishment records or establishment programs, and I only need the relevant pages. I don't need your entire food safety system, okay? Just send me the relevant pages that support your position. If you want your documents returned, send them via mail or courier like FedEx or UPS so I can return them to you. If you want your documents shredded when I'm done with them, let me know and I'll shred them for you. If you submitted an appeal to like the immediate supervisor or the frontline supervisor, if you would include a copy of the appeal that you sent to them and a copy of their response, that's very helpful for me to understand the appeal. Or you're welcome, just give me a call and discuss your concerns or ask for guidance before you submit the appeal. That's fine also. If you send me documents via email, I can certainly delete the email, but even if I delete the email, it is still in our system. So that's why if you really want your documents back or you really want your documents destroyed, if you send them via email, even though I'll delete them, they're not gone from our system for forever. So it's really up to you how you want to send any documents to us. Like I said, you can send them via postal mail, via courier like FedEx or UPS. You can email them to me. I'm just letting you know that if you email me anything, it never goes away entirely. Okay. And so that's it for responding to the district office. I'll open up for questions now if anybody has any questions.
Question box, you can put your name on it, or you don't have to, and get those in. I'll start out with a couple of comments, following up what Dr. McKean said. I couldn't have agreed with everything she said anymore, especially when it comes to responses, and particularly with NOIEs. I suspect we've assisted hundreds of establishments over the years in developing their responses to NOIEs, and I'm not aware of a single time that a company that was making a good faith effort got suspended for not getting their response in on time, or was denied an extension if they were making a good faith effort toward doing what they needed to do. So absolutely, in those situations, I couldn't implore you more to stay in communication with the district. Let them know what's going on. They're there to work with you, and we work with a lot of districts. We obviously work with Dallas the most, and I will tell you that the same is true everywhere. We don't have the same level of communication sometimes with the other districts, but I can tell you all of them are the same in terms of if you're going to work, if you're willing to work with them, they'll work with you. So I completely agree with that. Dr. McKean, I have a question for you. This is just came up the other day, and it's really probably not terribly pertinent to the folks that are on this, but it's the first time I've talked to you since it came up. I had a state representative call my office, and he wanted me to tell him all about meat inspection, and he wanted to know more about meat inspection, and he's had a lot of phone calls. He said, of folks that wanted to open packing plants. They wanted to get a grant of inspection, but USDA said, "Oh no, we don't have enough inspectors to cover any new plants. The USDA is going to drag their feet," and they hadn't even been able to break ground because of USDA foot dragging. And I spoke for you and told him that I could be pretty certain that was in fact not the case. That I'd never heard at least your office tell anybody, "Hey, no, you can't get a grant of inspection because I can't provide coverage."
No, we've never said that, and we can definitely provide coverage. There's some locations that are kind of really far out there and might be a challenge for us, but we can definitely provide coverage, and we have several different options. If they're not going to go out, if they don't intend to sell product outside the state of Texas, we always let them know that Texas and Oklahoma both have state programs, good state inspection programs, and that they should definitely consider the state inspection programs, or they can certainly consider FSIS as well. But we've never turned anyone down because we didn't have enough inspectors. If we've ever denied anybody a grant of inspection, it's because the facility didn't meet the requirements, or they somehow did not meet the requirements. And in a few cases over the years, I know we've been contacted by some various either Senate offices or congressional offices, mostly in Texas, but sometimes in other states. And we've always worked with their constituents. And if they genuinely, truly do want a grant of inspection, they always get a grant of inspection. So I've gotten probably more calls this year, especially since the pandemic started, than in the last 10 years that I've been the district manager. I think a lot of folks have gotten CARES Act money, and there's a lot of interest in building small multi-species livestock slaughter plants. Seems like every empty plant that's been closed and non-operational, somebody's looking at it, somebody's planning to buy it, and somebody's called our office. We haven't turned anybody away, so I don't know why that office told you that, but I'd be happy to talk to that person, especially if you had any specifics. but we're hiring new inspectors all the time, and there's no moratorium on hiring inspectors. If there's a legitimate need for inspection, we're absolutely hiring inspectors and providing inspection, no matter where you are in the state.
Okay, guys, I know there's about 50 or 60 of you on the line on online right now, so let's get your questions submitted.
Okay, we do have one question about MOIs. What is the best method on responding to these?
Okay, what type of MOI are we talking about? Would this be like a weekly plant meeting, or is it some other kind of MOI, perhaps regarding good commercial practices? Could you be more specific?
I'm not sure. This one came in through the queue, so it's
Oh, okay.
a pretty broad question.
Okay, well, if you have access to PHIS, one of the best ways to respond, the easiest way to respond would be to respond in PHIS. But I realize that a lot of folks don't have PHIS access. If you want PHIS access, give me a call and I will help you. I've helped a lot of folks get into PHIS this year, and I'm a lot better at it than I used to be. And I'm a lot more knowledgeable. Glad to help anybody get into PHIS. If you don't have PHIS access or don't want PHIS access, you could always respond to the MOI with an email, or you could type up something on your letterhead. You could probably handwrite something if you wanted to, and present it to the inspector and ask that it be included. And we could do that. But I would probably need to know more specifics about the type of MOI in order to give you a better response.
Okay, next question. With EIAOs, are they available virtually for establishments to reach out to for resources, or are they only in person?
No, they're absolutely available virtually, and they love doing it virtually. USDA did purchase Teams, the Teams application for all of our employees. It's on all of our computers. So we don't use Zoom, we use Teams. That way you could have a nice kind of a face-to-face virtual discussion with the EIAOs, and they're really happy to provide materials virtually and to have, virtual outreach. If you want to contact Dr. Naylor Biles, and her contact information was on one of the slides in this presentation. She is the supervisor of all the EIAOs. She would be happy to assign an EIAO to set up a date and a time for a virtual outreach meeting. And our DVMSs are also available virtually as well if you want to talk about humane handling or good commercial practices.
Awesome. Next question. Has there been any discussion regarding phasing out vets at slaughter locations?
There has been some discussion about our serious shortage of veterinarians, and there has definitely been discussion about utilizing resources most efficiently and effectively. I will say there's some plants where we will always have veterinarians, especially in your high pathology livestock slaughter plants. ABF, I bet y'all are at this meeting. You guys will always have a veterinarian, okay? You can't get by without one. A lot of these small multi-species livestock plants, where they're slaughtering primarily healthy animals that are brought in mostly by the animal owners. Those plants, they have very little pathology, very few dispositions. We will not be assigning veterinarians to these plants to work in these plants day in and day out. We're assigning the veterinarians to our high pathology plants where we need veterinarians. Our small multi-species plants that slaughter healthy animals, those are generally staffed by a consumer safety inspector, GS9, but there is always a veterinarian available for dispositions, especially if you want to appeal a disposition or if the CSI rails one out. CSIs can't condemn a livestock carcass, so it would have to be condemned by a veterinarian. So we do have veterinarians available. Now, we don't have as many veterinarians in the poultry slaughter plants as we used to. Here in Texas, we have it, well, in the Dallas district, let me correct that, not Texas, but in the Dallas district, I have a veterinarian on every shift in a poultry plant. Not every shift. I have a veterinarian on at least one shift in all of our large poultry slaughter plants. But I do have some supervisory consumer safety officers on the opposite shift because I need supervisors in those plants. So we may not have a vet on both shifts in the poultry plants, but in our livestock plants, the ones that have enough dispositions to require veterinarians, we have veterinarians on both shifts in all those plants. I don't see us ever getting away from veterinarians in livestock slaughter and even in poultry slaughter. There just may not be a veterinarian in every plant on every shift in the poultry plants.
Next question. This, and you can answer this one to the best of your ability, but how are other districts handling foreign material claims? It seems that the Dallas District Office does a really great job as far as following up with establishments. And I guess our person asking this question is having difficulty with other districts following up.
Okay. I can't really speak for the other districts. The Dallas district, we think we're doing it correctly, and we're really fortunate to have a great case specialist, Dr. Leyland. She really understands the new adulterated product module. She's very good at coaching our EIAOs because our EIAOs handle the reporting. They call it administrative duty, and they handle it in 2-week blocks. And so as each EIAO, it's their turn, so to speak, for the foreign material claims. Dr. Leyland and Dr. Naylor-Biles work with them very closely to make sure that they gather all the correct information and that it goes to the correct district. I'm just lucky to have a really good team. I can't speak for the other districts, but I would say if you have concerns, talk to your other districts first, and then let's see, Alameda and Denver and Dallas, we all have the same supervisor. It's Paul Woolsey. He's our executive associate. And then the other districts are under different executive associates. But like I say, all I can say is we have a very dedicated team that's been working well together. And I think we took the 418 notification pretty seriously ever since we received the 418 regulation through one of the farm bills. And so we've always encouraged the reporting, and I think that's kind of maybe got us ahead of the curve a little bit. But if you're having specific problems with specific districts, maybe you could talk to me offline and I could try to help you resolve the issues.
Okay, and one quick question. Has the position for frontline supervisor in Austin, Texas been filled, or do you have a timeline as to when that position?
Yes, in fact, we just made a selection yesterday. I offered the job to him yesterday and he accepted. So I returned the certificate this morning, and Dr. Eric Van Arsdale was selected. I sent out an email to the district this morning, so the inspectors should all know. Dr. Van Arsdale gets 10 weeks to report, so we anticipate him reporting in mid-April. Of course, he gets house hunting and he'll have to move, so that's why he's got some time in there. And of course, we'll do some on-the-job training with him and get him set up. You probably won't see him in the Austin circuit until maybe the last week of April, first week of May, because he's got to move. But we're adding him to our distribution lists. I've invited him to our virtual frontline supervisor meeting that we'll be having the week of February 22nd. So we're going to try to get him up to speed, so when he arrives here in Texas, he hits the ground running. Dr. Van Arsdale did work for us when he first started with FSIS. He worked in the Nacogdoches circuit, and he was in the Center plant, Tyson Foods in Center, Texas. He's very good, knows a lot about exports. He's got some experience with the small multi-species livestock slaughter, which I know I've got 1 or 2 in the Austin circuit. And then of course he's got a wealth of poultry experience and NPIS. So he's been working with NPIS establishments. He's also got a lot of experience with exports, although I don't think the Austin circuit does a whole lot of exports. So we're very excited to have Dr. Van Arsdale here in the Dallas district coming back to us. So look for him in mid to late April.
Dr. McKean, I have one additional question.
Sure.
You know, the pandemic has created plenty of challenges in every way imaginable for your agency, for our industry, for the folks that operate in our industry. And the question arises from time to time is there any additional flexibility being considered currently for a company that may have a temporary need for a second shift, that it probably is not going to be a forever thing? And, you know, traditionally you always had to demonstrate you're going to have an ongoing need. And
Right.
the pandemic has really changed things around. Is there any flexibility being granted for that
Yes.
this day and age?
Yes, there is. We've done some temporary second shifts for quite a few different plants. You know, it's because I know a lot of the plants got like big contract orders under the CARES Act or the food boxes, you know, that were being produced to give to needy people because of the pandemic. And so we have granted some second shifts to plants that needed to fill orders, you know, on a temporary basis. And we've been a lot more flexible with those temporary second shifts. I mean, we're not giving second shifts to get out of paying overtime, but we are definitely giving temporary second shifts if you need them on a temporary basis. And of course, if you're in a major metro location where I can cover it, it's a whole lot easier. But I have given temporary second shifts to places that were not in major metro locations, and we have been covering them. So we are very open to temporary second shifts if we need to. If you want to get in touch with me to talk to me about it, I'd be happy to talk to anybody about a temporary second shift. And that would be 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever you think you're going to need. And then as soon as all I ask is once you don't need it anymore, let me know, give it up so that I can assign that person elsewhere. Because as you know, your tax dollars are paying for these inspectors. So I'm trying to manage them efficiently and making sure I'm not wasting your money, but also making sure that I provide you what you need. So we are doing temporary second shifts. I don't want to name off any names because, you know, I don't want to spill any trade secrets, but I think we've done at least 3 in the last year, if not more.
Thank you. Any final questions in the queue, Lacey?
We have no more questions.
Well, Dr.
Where's
McKean,
Denise? Denise didn't have a question for me?
she may have. You know, they came in anonymously, so we don't know who they came from.
All right. Well, I had to welcome Denise and her question because she promised she'd ask me one.
I suspect she did.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome.
Well, thank
That's
you
great.
again for being with us. You're always very generous with your time, and we appreciate it. And we appreciate your well, I don't know about an open door, but at least your open telephone policy that we're always free to call you with anything, and you're always great to get back with us. And we appreciate your time and spending it with us this afternoon.
Sure, anytime. And we can always set up Teams calls too. Now that we have Teams, I actually kind of like it because it's kind of nice getting to see some different people, even if it's just on a computer screen. So yeah, we can always set up conference calls, Teams calls. Happy to hear from anybody. I did have a call this morning. Somebody was asking me about contractors or consultants. And I said, well, here's some meat industry associations that operate in Texas. They should be able to put you in touch with a consultant. So, yep, we're really glad that there are some industry associations because there are a lot of people interested in opening new slaughter plants and new processing plants in the Dallas district. So I expect you'll be hearing from some of those folks. That
there are, and we have already heard from them. So thank you again, and we'll we'll start to wrap things up.